For years now, Sur has been the only real lightweight e-bike slash dirt bike in its class, and people love them. But for riders who wanted something a little faster, the only choice has been to dump tons of money into modifying an existing Sur from 60 volts to 72 volts. Until now. Sur recently introduced the 72 volt Sur Ultra, and then Talaria showed up out of nowhere with the 60 volt Sting R, and this is the Eclipse. A 72 volt e-bike slash moped with a frame made out of carbon fiber is from British PEV company Solar, so that makes its full name the Solar Eclipse. We usually review electric scooters on this channel, but we're branching out. So to get you primed, here's a 20-second history of the motorcycle. Once upon a time, people started putting small gas-powered motors on bicycles. Riding one of these motorcycles felt just like riding a bicycle, except without all the sweating and pedaling. But from there, motorcycles just kept getting bigger and faster and bigger and faster, until nobody could afford to buy them and everybody was afraid to ride them. But now we've come full circle. Bicycles have motors again, almost everybody can afford one, and even better, nobody's afraid to ride them. I've been riding motorcycles rain or shine for over 20 years, including racing both on and off-road. And as a motorcyclist, the Eclipse has just blown my mind. In town, it basically has all the advantages of a motorcycle. So you've got the speed and acceleration to ride with the cars if you want, but in many cases also letting you get away with riding where bikes ride. But it's easier to ride than either of them because it has no clutch, no shifting, a super easy throttle, and it's so lightweight, you don't need to worry about losing your balance when stopped as you do on a full-size motorcycle. You wouldn't guess from looking at it, but it's also easier to ride than some of the faster kick scooters because, to put it bluntly, you're connected to it with your butt, so you don't have to lean into the throttle or drop your butt when you brake. Those of you with keen eyes have noticed already that this e-bike slash moped has no pedals, and that's because it would be silly to add 250 watts of pedal power to a 6 kilowatt PEV. Let's look at some of the specs. It's rated for 2,500 watts of output, conveniently below the 3 kilowatt limit in California for motorized bicycles. But based on our performance test, which you'll see later, we think even the 6 kilowatt peak power spec may be understated. Similarly, claimed range is 45 to 50 miles on flat ground, and we'll give you the exact number later, but it obliterated that spec in our range test. This actually didn't surprise us because the battery is huge at 72 volts and 45 amp hours. Compared to some of the biggest scooters we've tested, that's 28% bigger than the Wolf King GT and 110% larger than the Segway GT2. More importantly, it's 60% larger than the battery of a base model Sur X. But since it's made of lightweight 21700 battery cells, the Eclipse's battery is surprisingly easy to carry. And the key, and I think the coolest feature of the Eclipse, is that it has a lightweight carbon fiber frame. So you get performance very similar to much larger Surons like the Sur Ultra, but portability and lightweight very similar to the original Sur Light BX. The price in the US is $59.95, which unlike some of the Surons includes shipping. And a spec we don't normally need for scooters, your inseam. Seat height is just over 32 inches. I have a 32-inch inseam and I'm able to flat foot it with no problem. Okay, I'm gonna do something really different here and take you through ride quality and build quality live in first person. Okay, so let's start with how you turn it on. So you unlock it here, and then you can either power it up by hitting the start button right here, or you can hit the little lightning bolt right here twice, and it turns the power on, so you can start this remotely. And then, just like all motorcycles, it has a side stand switch. So if I come to a stop in sport mode, and I put the side stand down, I'll find myself in park, and the throttle won't go. It's protecting me from riding off and pole vaulting off of the side stand. Side stand switches are a feature I would love to see added to e-scooters as time goes on. The Eclipse feels well finished and has everything I want it to without being too complicated. The dash is straightforward, and what I love most is that you can do everything with your thumbs without looking down. You can just feel the difference between the switches. Over here we've got high beam, low beam, and left and right turn signals, and I'm gonna beat the horn, it's gonna be really loud. Whoa, it's a motorcycle grade horn. And now the side stand is up, you can see we're still in park mode. And to get out of park mode, you just push this button right here and it toggles it right into sport mode. I like this because when you come to a stop, you can just give it a quick poke and now you've basically engaged safety. So you're not gonna accidentally throttle this thing if you're pushing it or if somebody bumps into the throttle. So when you first turn it on, you'll need to put the side stand up and poke the park button to get it into sport mode. But then you're ready to go. And I like that you can tell both because it says sport right here on the dash, but then also the button here, you can tell if it's out or in, and more forward is more go, and that's your sport mode. So it all makes sense. The display is really easy to read, and it's got automatic brightness. And so if it gets dark out, I'm gonna simulate that by covering the sensor with my thumb. Then it gets a little darker. Of course, it's a little dark in here right now, so maybe that's as dark as it gets. But then you go out in the sunlight, and I'm gonna simulate that with my handy flashlight here. Put it right here, and you see in a couple seconds, boom, it gets really bright. And then nighttime, it goes back to darkness. But you can also set the brightness manually if you want to. Your display shows your state of charge in percent, your speed, of course, riding mode, right now we're in park, but riding mode, sport or eco, shows your voltage down here, and your current draw, total miles, it's got a trip meter here, and even your motor temperature. I do kind of wish it had a clock because you can literally ride this for hours on end. It comes with mirrors and passenger pegs, and it's got a license plate holder. And I'm just setting it in place so you can get an idea of what it looks like when it's installed. Of course, for testing purposes, I ran it just like this in stealth mode. We weighed it just like this, and it came in at 134 pounds. So with all the stuff installed, the weight probably matches the 138 pound specification. The lights on this thing are so cool looking and clean. The light's probably washing it out a bit, but they're just really nice. And I love the tail light. It's just like super clean back here. I also like that even if you don't have the rear fender on, you still get turn signals from the little tail light. And of course the brake lights work too. And the turn signals, I love that they are dump resistant. In other words, if you tip this thing over, the turn signals are staying off the ground and not getting broken. But let's talk about this frame for a minute. I couldn't believe it when I first heard about it, but it's entirely made out of carbon fiber. I mean, even the swing arm is carbon fiber. And I think the frame is one of the reasons that performance is closer to the new 74 volt Ultra B than the Sur-Ron X, but still 54 pounds lighter than the Ultra B. The seat is, okay. It's pretty typical for a dirt bike. It's narrow and lets you move around. It's got space for a passenger, but if you're gonna do 60 miles all at once like I did, it starts to get a little uncomfortable. And then the adjustable KKE hydraulic suspension keeps things ultra smooth. We've got rebound adjustment up here. And then way down below the beautiful inverted fork tubes, we've got an air fitting right here. And don't hook up a bicycle pump to this because it's not gonna get it. These are designed to go from 100 to 150 pounds of pressure and give you some extra spring if you need it. And at the back, you get your KKE and remote reservoir shock. And it doesn't just have rebound, it's got compression too. And of course, you can also adjust the preload by turning this collar here. Check out this clip of the damping when we drop the front end, getting it out of full run. It comes with 19-inch wheels front and rear with knobby tires, and of course, these are tubed tires. But being a dirt bike, you can kind of lace these up with anything you want to if you want to mod it. So no doubt there'll be options in the future for supermoto style wheels and more road-focused tires, which is definitely an option I would want. All right, so let's go for a ride. I'm gonna start out in eco mode. And it's in this mode, it basically feels like a bicycle, but with very high top speed. It'll go up to 42 miles per hour with the firmware I've got installed. And I'm filming a little 360 while I'm doing this, which means I'm riding one-handed, which I don't recommend, but it's actually incredibly easy. And yeah, okay, realistically, I'm getting up to about 32 here. So wheels off the ground limited to 42, but wheels on the ground, I'm seeing about 32 in eco mode. All right, let's go ahead and switch over to sport mode. Oh yeah, oh man, that's so good. Okay, I'm still riding one-handed, which I really shouldn't be doing, but you can do it because your butt's connected to the seat. It's not like a scooter where you're balancing yourself all the time. This thing just scoots and it's so smooth. I love it. Oh man, I gotta calm down here. This is too much fun. Oh, so good. The suspension is so good on this thing. There we go. Oh. It's like nothing. I'm not even getting out of the seat for that. It's so good. Okay, so your brakes are here and here. The one on the right is your front brake, just like a motorcycle. And the one on the left is your left brake, like most scooters. It's got 200mm disc brakes front and rear with dual piston calipers. I'd like it if they had more bite though, but once you get below 90% battery, the regen braking kicks in automatically and the brakes feel noticeably stronger. I can't get over how good the suspension is, especially with the big wheels. I mean, watch this. I didn't even pull up to go over that curb. And then these potholes, I hit those before, but man, I mean, you definitely can't do this on an electric scooter. This thing is just ridiculously fun to ride. I just have to keep reminding myself it's a lot faster than I think it is. Another important build quality factor, the Eclipse's water resistance rating is IP67, the highest we've ever seen, which means it's really meant to be ridden rain or shine, which we've already taken advantage of. But what may be the Eclipse's most important feature of all is right here. It has a 17-digit VIN, so you can get a license plate. This is a feature that Surons historically haven't had, so some people have gotten titles for Surons at the DMV, and some have just received blank stares from the folks at the counter when presenting less than 17 digits. By June, Solar expects to have DOT certification, making the Eclipse road legal in all 50 states as either an e-bike or a moped depending on your state. But check the DMV website in your state to be sure. I'm guessing in most states you'll need to leave it in eco mode to be road legal, but then when you go off-road, you can click it into sport mode, which of course would be illegal to do on the street. If I owned one, I would definitely want to register it to avoid trouble, but so far during the 75 miles of unplated street riding I've done in Oakland, local PD and even the CHP have both seen me and couldn't have been less interested. Though as part of my camouflage, I was riding squarely in the bike lane. In addition to registration, it's important to know that depending on where you live, you also need the equivalent of a motorcycle license and insurance to be fully legit. Solar is also building a local dealer network, so depending on where you live, you'll be able to get your Eclipse serviced locally rather than having to ship it somewhere for service. We've got performance numbers next, but first, if you want more detail about how to get your own Eclipse, find a link down below in this video's description. Using the link helps support this channel, and if there are any deals or coupon codes to be had, we'll be updating them down there too. Top speed is much faster than a stock Solar X at an ESG certified 57.8 miles per hour. We actually saw 67 miles per hour on the speedometer, but just like most other vehicles, this one is optimistic by about 10%. Keep in mind that even if you get a plate, it's not freeway legal, so don't go out and become famous like our friend Greg. Something very unusual happened on the range test course. No, I didn't get scooter jacked again, but I did exceed the specified range of 45 to 50 miles. Starting with a full charge, I rode 61.3 miles in sport mode before the bike cut off. And if you bring a spare battery in your backpack, you can stretch that out to 122.6 miles, which is as far as my first motorcycle would go, including the reserve tank. The battery takes about 2 minutes to swap, but the downside is it costs about as much as a nice scooter.
Wait, this thing costs $2,200?
The battery costs $2,200.
Oh, I thought it was this. I was like, oh, I'm gonna buy one.
Despite being easy to ride, the Eclipse is deceptively quick. With a 0 to 30 time of just 3.6 seconds, it beats every PEV we've ever tested, including the Nami Bernie 2 Max and a pre-production version of the eMove Roadrunner Tronic that uses motor controllers made by Ryan. The Eclipse also rips up hills from a standing start on a steep 10% grade test hill. I was going 36 miles per hour by the end of the block. The stopping distance from 15 miles per hour was 12.2 feet, which is not bad, but not as strong as I think it could be. The brakes aren't grabby, which is good for new riders, but I think expert riders might find themselves wanting to upgrade to metallic brake pads for even more bite if they're available. The plus side of the stock brakes is you can grab them as hard as you want and you won't go over the handlebars. The portability of the Eclipse was a big surprise. As tested, it only weighs 8.6 pounds more than our tested weight of the Wolf King GT and just 13 pounds more than the weight spec of the Sur-Ron Lightbeat X, despite the Eclipse's battery being 60% larger. When I needed to haul it to our secret top speed run spot, it fit right in the back of the 4Runner and was light enough for one person to load. Its narrow look also helps it sneak in where full-size motorcycles dare not tread. Here it is going for a ride in the elevator. And good news for apartment dwellers, if you don't feel like letting it sleep in your bedroom, the removable battery and locking steering means you don't need to take the Eclipse inside to charge it. Pros of the Solar Eclipse include easier to ride than some kick scooters, has ultra long range that can be doubled with a battery swap, has a better combination of performance and portability than its peers, and a 17-digit VIN means that you can go legit and ride with peace of mind. Cons include price is high, but surprisingly not as high as some pedal-based e-bikes. The fact that you can register it means you probably should, and you should get a motorcycle license too. And there are more modifications available for the Surons at the moment, but that's also because they sort of needed to be modified in the first place. Normally in our reviews, we only compare the subject vehicle against other PEVs we've hands-on tested, so we can compare tested data against tested data, and not against spec sheets. But we can't not compare the Eclipse to the Surons, even though we haven't tested one yet. The Suron X is better known and less expensive, but is much less powerful, slower, and as far as we know, still doesn't come with the things you need to make it street legal, like a 17-digit VIN and street legal turn signals. The Suron Ultra is rumored to have a 17-digit VIN, and its battery is 22% larger than the Eclipse, and 0 to 30 time is also rumored to be quicker. But it costs more than the Eclipse and outweighs it by a whopping 54 pounds. So we think the Eclipse with its carbon fiber frame is hitting the sweet spot for motorcycle-like performance and scooter-like portability. The PEV world is just exploding with good stuff. All the features we've been asking for, like higher IP ratings, better lighting, better suspension, they just keep coming. But in the US, we're still living in sort of a Wild West anything goes world. When the price tag of your PEV starts nudging up the price of a good used car, the idea of going legit with a license plate and insurance starts to get very appealing, both for theft prevention and preventing awkward moments with law enforcement. I would absolutely love to plate an Eclipse and use it to commute to work, and for mobbing around on weekends.
And for those who do get one, I honestly think their most likely complaint might be their commute suddenly feels way too short. Maybe one more trip around the block before I head inside. Click the links in the description, and like, and subscribe!